Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Food Freedom and Fertility. This is part 2 of Sophia's ectopic pregnancy and her medical treatment and how she's doing. So, if you were hanging out with us for the last episode, you're going to jump right in. If you haven't, I would kind of recommend that you go hang out and listen to the previous episode, part 1. Because we're going to kind of pick up from there. But to give you kind of a running summary, Sophia found out she had an ectopic pregnancy. Kind of the big salient points are that she knew that the baby had passed, knew that it potentially wasn't as emergency. Like there was a chance that she could take a medication and avoid emergency surgery. It's probably the easiest way of saying it.
Yeah.
But that it
So
wasn't
the details are in the first episode.
exactly. So we're going to kind of come in here in time. We're going to bed Thursday night, right? And then Friday morning, we're going to wake up and we're trying to be seen at a doctor's office to monitor
Yes.
and make sure that the medicine's doing its job and Sophia doesn't need surgery.
Yes. So Friday morning, I wake up and I am not feeling good. I'm not feeling better. My belly is just as swollen and tender. It is not feeling good. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go see my doctor today. So I call them again and I say, what time should I come in? I need to be monitored. And they say, well, we don't have a doctor in the office today. And I'm like, okay, well, do we really need one to be there for me just to have an ultrasound and a blood draw? Like, do we really need a doctor to be there for that? Can't you just tell them my results and have them make a decision?
You know, all the nurses are
And
there anyway.
yeah, and so they were like, a fine suggestion. Let me talk with the doctor and see what they want to do. But my doctor was doing surgery on other people on Friday, so she wasn't very accessible. So I'm on the phone with them, and
the hospital system that my doctor's office is a part of, even when you put a rush order on getting a blood draw, it goes into a queue that takes up to 24 hours for them to actually get your orders. So they're like, I'm sorry, this system is so bad. And I was like, the doctor in the ER really emphasized that this needs to be done today. And they told me, well, we don't have a doctor in the office, and these rush orders are going to take some time. Meanwhile, it's Friday. Our policy is usually to follow up at the 4-day mark. So why don't you just come in on Monday? And I was like, no, I'm coming in today. I just really need you guys to look at this. Even if it tells us nothing and we do have to wait 4 days before we can tell if something's working, I just need you to look because I just know that something's up. And the doctor in the ER was like so adamant about the 48-hour mark. And so they were like, okay, makes sense. Let me talk to your doctor. And so at this point, I was like supposed to meet them there at noon to get the ultrasound. Well, they don't have a radiologist who can review it. And I was like, oh my God, like, can you send me to a different clinic? Like, I live in San Diego. There are places on every effing corner. Like, all I need is for you to tell me where to go. I don't want to go pay $500 out of my pocket because you guys can't get your shit together. Just send me somewhere else then. Like, what's the deal? And they're like, no, okay, we'll have you come here. We'll have Our Lady do it. We don't have a radiologist to review it. And I was like, I tell you what, my neighbor's a radiologist. So I called him up. Was like, Bryson, here's the situation. Can you review this for me? He's home with norovirus at this point. So he's like barfing, but he's like, between barfs, I'd be happy to look at this for you. However, pelvic ultrasound is just so not my jam. He's like, cardiac guy. Like he's like, this is just not my thing. And he's still a resident. So he's like, I'm sorry. I feel like I just can't be your guy. And I was like, all I need you to tell, bigger or smaller, is it hemorrhaging? This is all we're trying to see. And he's like, unofficially, I'd be happy to give you the result, but I really don't want your life hinging on what I'm seeing here. And I was like, got it. If there's any question, I will just go to an ER. So I'm like, at this point, I've hodgepodged together my own freaking dream team, right?
Hey, Food Freedom and Fertility family. It's Sophia introducing Fertility Cloud. High treatment costs can be daunting, but here's some good news. 80% of Fertility Cloud patients have gotten pregnant for under $2,000 after just 5 months of treatment. Starting your family doesn't need to come with a huge price tag. Fertility Cloud virtual consultations mean you can talk to them from the comfort of your couch. They create personalized plans for men and women, whether it's ovarian stimulation with Clomid or Letrozole, Ovidrel trigger shots, guidance on male fertility, or even weight management support with medication. As a special for Food Freedom and Fertility listeners, get $50 off your initial medical doctor consultation. With meds delivered in just a day or two, unlimited support for your questions, and free follow-ups when needed, they're here to make your path to parenthood smoother and more affordable. Ready to start? Visit myfertilitycloud.com and enter Food Freedom, one word, at checkout.
Driving up to La Jolla, which is like 35 minutes from where I live. I'm almost there. My doctor's office calls me again and says, I've gotten a hold of your surgeon. Based on the fact that your belly is like swollen and hurting and everything you're saying, she wants you to go to the ER at the hospital where she's performing surgery today. And I was like, it's that crappy ER that we first went to, of course, is the one that she's at today, which I was like, fine, I'll go there. Can you please call them and give them like a heads up that I'm coming and like have all the orders in? So now I have to turn around, call my husband. Meanwhile, he has just taken our daughters to lunch. He took them to their gymnastics class and now he's taking them to lunch. They just sat down and are ordering. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to like leave this restaurant and like take them home and get a babysitter and like come meet you? And I was like, no, this is fine. So I call Robin, this lady Robin, who is my community Bible study leader from last session. She's like 55 years old, wonderful woman in Christ. She has a very long story. Was never able to have her own biological children, yet here God has placed her in. She's in charge of the Babes in Arms group. So all the ladies my age that have little babies were all in her group. So she has become like a mom to so many of us, which she thinks is like crazy because she's like, I have no experience with any of this. But at the same time, it's like for her, it's that verse that like the barren woman will like have cry out. Anyway, she now has all these little mommies and these little daughters that are like, help me, Robin. So she, in a wonderful turn of events, she was supposed to be with her mother-in-law. She has a 95-year-old mother-in-law that she cares for sometimes. Her husband got the day off work. And so as she got this call from me asking to meet me in the ER, her husband happened to show up right there and say, I've got the, time off. I was just going to hang out with mom today. And she's like, great. One of my friends needs me to come meet her at the ER. So she comes and meets me there. We go in. Of course, it's like insanity happening in there. And finally check in. I sit for about an hour. They call me back to get an ultrasound. Get the ultrasound, and then they send me back to the ER waiting room. So I got to sit with all these nutso people yelling at each other and everything else. And about 2.5 hours go by before they say, it's time for you to get your blood draw. So this whole 2.5 hours, I'm like, you could just draw my blood and send it to the lab so we can know what's going on in this 2.5 hours. But they are so overrun. When they send me back to get my blood drawn, I walk past this one hallway that is lined with little old ladies laying in ambulance gurneys. They're all waiting to be seen. I get my blood drawn in another hallway filled with people, some of them faces busted open getting stitches, some of them barfing into tubs, some
Oh
of
my
them
God.
screaming out in pain. One guy comes by and whispers to the lady drawing my blood that the person in the stall right next to me with the curtain closed had actually just passed away in there.
Oh,
And so it is just and I'm in a hallway. And so this lady's drawing my blood in this hallway. And I'm like, here we are. So she takes many vials of blood and then sends me back to the ER waiting room because they have nowhere else to put me. So Robin and I are just sitting in the ER waiting room. Meanwhile, I'm wearing my like stretchiest sweatpants and they are uncomfortable at this point. My belly is like pregnant belly. It's so big and uncomfortable. And I am like feeling woozy. But then again, I've been on a liquid diet for 2 days. And so I'm thinking, I'm having a low blood sugar. I'm sure I've had no appetite. And so I'm sitting there, like waiting for them to tell me to go home, hopefully. And so Louis at this point has like finished lunch with the girls, taken them home, laid them down. They're like, napping. And he's like, do you want me to like get a babysitter and come swap out with Robin? Or like, what do you want to do? And I'm thinking, surely they're going to send me home at any point. Why have you go through all of that just for me to say, never mind, I'm coming home? So he's like, okay, keep me updated. And so,
you're like uncomfortable.
mhm.
And yet, guys, like Sophia is in this scenario where she needs people to take care of her for once. Like, this is like husband's in the military, gone for weeks, months at a time, running a business, being a total badass, so capable, so extraordinary, so fun, so special, has such a community around her and has built that so her husband could say to her like, should I get a sitter? Do I need someone to cut? Like, do you want me to come be with you? She's also told me that she has felt like dramatic that she has Robin sit
Yes,
with
like I'm
her.
being sort of a baby by being like, Robin, will you come sit with me in this emergency room?
And
To which Robin is like, I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world. You cannot sit by yourself in the emergency room. Like, you need people with you.
like really feeling like this could go either way. So like you're uncomfortable enough, you look pregnant, you got all this blood spilling out in your abdomen, although nobody's confirmed that for you
Yeah,
yet.
but like, hello, endometriosis. Hello, digestive irritable bowel syndrome lady. Like, when do I not have some sort of tender tummy situation? I will say by this point, I'm beginning to think
This
something's
is
up.
a problem.
Like, my belly is getting so big and tender at this point that I'm like, something really is up.
Mhm. And Louis is in a precarious situation as a husband. Like I got these two babies, really, 4 and 2-year-old,
Hmm.
asleep at home napping, and his wife, who he's been with at all these medical things in the last couple days, is now sitting in the stupid ER he just witnessed. And like, I kind of want to come see you, but should I stay home? It's a hard situation,
Yeah, if
but
we knew for sure I was going to be there for 4 hours, it was a no-brainer. But are they gonna call your name at any moment? Like, that's the whole conundrum.
and also it's really hard when you're the patient to see everything for what it is. And like, um, I just want to underline because I know so many of our listeners are so capable. Some of you may even be practitioners or trained in some of these things. And it's still important to have like a medical care team and people there around you to take care of you. Like this girl that just lifted 300 pounds and is a badass still is sitting in the ER on Friday going, this is uncomfortable. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like you need a good care team around you, but you also need to receive. And I think that
Yeah.
from my perspective, even being a couple thousand miles away, Sophia has really actually done that very graciously through this and just been like calling Robin and saying, come sit with me. I want you to hear that, listeners. And it's okay to say, yeah, get the
Yes.
sitter and come be with me because even though I might leave in 20 minutes, what if I need surgery? Like, I just want you to hear you're important enough to let people pour into you. and
Yes.
to get those voices around you to support and just be good counselors when for you it may not be so objective.
Yes, absolutely. And so we're sitting there, and more time goes by. And then some young looking dude with pushing a wheelchair walks into the emergency room and says, Pavia, Sophia? And I was like, Sophia Pavia, that's me. And he goes, okay, I have your wheelchair. And I was like, I need a wheelchair? And he goes, oh, yeah, it's our policy. And
And you're
so I
like,
was
for
like,
what? You're just
for
walking
what?
back
So I was like,
past the
okay. So
dead lady and the gurney.
yeah, so I like sit in the wheelchair, and he starts pushing me, and I was like, where are we going? And he looks at the little tag that they gave him. Like, they put a sticker on the wheelchair and go get this person and take them to this place. I was like, where are we going? And he's like, looks like we're going to labor and delivery pre-op. And I was like, pre-op? I'm having surgery? And he's like, because in his face is like, lady, I'm 19 and they pay me $10 an hour to push wheelchairs. Like, I don't really know what you're expecting me to say to you. And so we're going past the like reception desk in the ER. And I was like, hey, where am I going? What's happening? And the receptionist just says, looks like you've had a rupture. We're taking you into the operating room. And I look over at Robin like, Robin. And she's like, and he says to her, it's patients only past this point. And I'm just looking at her, and she's like, okay, where are you taking her? Great. Sophia, I'm going to go around the other way. I'll meet you up there. And I was like, okay. And so then I call my husband, and I'm like, Louie, I'm going into surgery. I need you to get here now. And he's like, what? I can't hear you. And I'm like, I'm going into surgery. Get babysitter. Meet me here now. And he goes, what? And I say, please don't say what again. I need you to hear me and understand clearly. Get babysitter. Come to hospital now. Understand? And he's like, yes, yes, okay. And like and the guy pushing my wheelchair is like, I'm so sorry, I'm like in the lower bowels of the hospital getting like pushed through hallways. And he's like, we have terrible reception, let me take you to this place where we've got and he's like, here's how to get on the Wi-Fi, like do this, do a FaceTime call. And so that's what I did. And then Louis could finally hear me. And I was like, do you hear me? Get here now. And he's like, okay. And we'd had a few different friends be like, Sophia, I just heard what's going on. Let us know if you need anything. And I was like, we need something. My girls are asleep. Come sit in my house until they wake up. We'll call our regular babysitter who knows, the bedtime routine and all the things. Cause I have no idea how long. It's like 3:30 in the afternoon at this point. I have no idea how long this is going to take, whether I'm coming home tonight, whether I'm coming home in a week, what's going to happen to
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And so I also tell Louis, call my mom. And I text Caitlin, and all I said is, ovary ruptured, going into surgery, pray. Can you please help my mom get out here? Because my mom is a wonderful mother, a wonderful grandmother, very capable person. Technologically, not so much. And we've had just a lot of problems with like airlines and airports with her, where she will buy a flight thinking it leaves at 1 p.m. and it leaves at 1 a.m. Or she'll buy a flight from Colorado Springs to San Diego that stops in Dallas and Atlanta before it gets to San Diego. And we're like, Mom, do you see that you're traveling for 18 hours before getting here? And she's like, well, I don't know. It just, and like, so we've just had some issues. Plus, I mean, she's getting the news that her daughter's going into emergency surgery. It's just not a bad idea to have a handler help her go through this. So I just text Caitlin, and Caitlin sends me a voice note, which I didn't even think I listened to. And I'm just like sending texts to
Well, I
people who
tried to
pray.
call you and I was like, well, BJ, actually, I had taken a shower
I
with
put
one of
you and
my
BJ in
kids.
it because that's
We've
right.
been having
That's right.
text
That's right.
issues.
Yes, it's been, my texts were going to sometimes to her email, and she wouldn't see them for like until she's checking her damn email. Yeah.
So I'm taking a shower and BJ comes up and he's like, Sophia's going in surgery. You need to call her. And I was like, okay. So I get out and I try to call you and it goes straight to voicemail. So as our custom is, we pray a lot together. So I was like, well, I'm going to voice memo a prayer over so she just has someone to pray with her. Because I didn't know if she was alone. Like I was like, get me a flight, although I can't come right now. This is a
Yeah.
hard thing to sideline, I have to say. Like, I wanted
Oh
to
my
be there
gosh, it
right
was
then.
wild. And thankfully, Robin, who runs my community Bible study group, so by the time I get up to the OR prep area, they just shove me in another little waiting room. And I'm sitting there with a bunch of other pregnant ladies. And I'm like, I know I'm bleeding internally by this point, but I'm looking
Mhm.
around at these other pregnant ladies. Ain't a one of them here because things are going well.
Mhm.
And I know that this lady maybe was just told that her baby has passed. This lady's told some sort of heart complication and we need to whatever. They're all there because this baby that they love and have carried, and these ladies look very pregnant too. Like they've had time to really bond with these babies and they're not getting good news. And so I don't want to be the one that's like, excuse me, TikTok, I need to get my care, because like everyone does.
Mhm.
We're all struggling. And so I'm just sitting there and scared and praying, and Robin comes and sits next to me and she just starts praying over me, and then they call my name, they take me back to the prep room, and that's when it's just like flies into high gear. There's multiple nurses in there all ask me questions. What's your blood type? Where's your this? Who's your emergency contact? Take off these pants, put on these surgical stockings, do this, do that. And I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm saying, what is happening? No one has told me what's going on with me. And everybody just stops and they're all like, oh, oh, okay. You know what? Let's go get your doctor. In the meantime, Sandra here is going to start an IV on you. I'm going to step out, change into these surgical gowns. And so then my doctor comes in as they're like opening my gown and like cleansing my belly. And so who walks in but the doctor who did my endometriosis surgery, Dr. Spring Robinson, the doctor who I love and trust. And I burst into tears as soon as she comes in the room.
It's like having that
And she's
mom show
like,
up almost. Like you've been holding
yeah.
it together and
And I
then
was
you're
like,
just
I'm
like, oh.
scared. And she's like, I know you're scared. It's a little scary and you are bleeding, but think drinking fountain, not fire hose. And I was like, okay, that's a little better. Like
Mhm.
she's like, it's bleeding and it's serious, but you're not about to crash out. Which fast forward to when I'm actually walking into the OR and I do start to crash out a little bit. So, she explains to me, we're going to use the same holes from your endo surgery. It's going to be very similar. I'm probably going to have to take your tube. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on. Like, first step, save my life. Second step, save my fertility. And she's like, oh, I know, I will. And I said, well, I have had patients who go in for procedures like this and wake up in full menopause with everything gone. And she gives me like a little sly smile and a little bit of a wink and says, they didn't have me for their surgeon. And I was like, okay. And she's like, this is going to be fine. We're not out of the woods. We need to act fast, but this is going to be fine. And I was like, okay. So by this point, Louis comes walking in and he is like, whose ass do I need to kick? Because these people were telling her there was no bleed. Come in on Monday. F you
Yeah,
guys.
like you
But the
almost
truth is
died.
that was front desk people parroting their policy.
Right.
Once they'd actually gotten a hold of the doctor, turns out that ER doc had not spoken to her. She had no idea any of this was going on. She's in the OR operating on someone else and gets an emergency breakthrough message. Sophia's having an ectopic pregnancy. And she's like, what? And so she finishes that surgery, is like telling messages to whoever, like, tell my front desk, get her to this ER. So she's like doing all of this while operating on someone else. And so she finishes that surgery, calls me up as soon as possible to come in to her. And there we are. They make me sign some papers for a blood transfusion. And my husband's like, I'm her same type and titer. Just give her my blood. And they're like, and a fine gesture, sir, but we can't just take blood from
The
some
war
guy.
hero is like,
Yeah.
I would do
Yeah.
this out on the front line.
Yeah, because that's what they do on the front lines. They
Right.
open their own veins and give blood to the guy bleeding on the ground. And which is fine in a combat situation, but we've got a little bit better. We've got blood that's been treated and made specifically for transfusion and doesn't have all the clotting factors. And, we've got that going on in a hospital setting. So he is like praying over me, like hands on me praying while they're like finalizing all the questions. What's your birth date? What's your address? What, make sure I am who I say I am. What are we doing for you today? How are,
That fucking matters in this moment, but yes.
Well, they just want to make sure that they have to do this because there's been times in hospitals they take the wrong patient back and
No,
do the
yes.
wrong fucking thing
No,
to
you're
them.
right.
And so they're like, let's just make sure we're doing the right thing to the right person. And so they're doing all this, and Louis like standing over me, and he's like not mean mugging everybody, but he's really serious, and he is deeply, deeply ashamed and repentant for one, even making mention of what will this cost? Is our insurance gonna whatever? Do we really need to go see such and such for this? He is like, take my money, take it all. Like, I don't care at all. Give me a wife who's alive. I hate that I ever even cared. And he's also like, fuck me for sitting in a diner having grilled cheese and milkshakes with my kids while my life isn't my wife's life is in the balance. I should have been here from the beginning. And I'm like, honey, there's no way we could have known. And you didn't do anything wrong. And I told you to get here and you snapped into action and floored it. And here you are. And by this point, Caitlin had already worked with my mom. She'd gotten a flight lined up. Like, everybody had done what they needed to do. And so then as we're having this discussion, they're taking me back to the OR. I walk in and it is like a NASCAR pit crew who just descends on me. And like, I remember them pulling off my gown and showing my belly, and it is so big. And they like press it and it hurts so much and it's hard like a rock. And they're like, okay. Yeah. They're like, let's get going. Like, that's what the anesthesiologist said. She's like, all right, put a mask on my face. She's like, take a few deep breaths. And then a nurse leaned over and just said, goodbye. And then that's all I remember.
Goodbye.
Yeah. And like, she knocked me out. And I can tell you for sure they were working very fast because both my lips are split. I have a gash on the roof of my mouth. My throat is like really sore on the inside. I've got this like rattling cough. They jammed an airway in there and they got going right away because and I found out after the fact they had to suction an immense amount of blood out of me. I had a blood transfusion, which is crazy. Um and Louis says the surgery was so quick. Like, I was in and out of there in less than an hour. They worked really, really fast and saved my life. If I had waited until later that day, I would have bled out. And it's sobering to realize. And God got me where I needed to be. He got me in front of the right people. He got me a good team. And I am on the mend. So they took my tube. They were able to take the baby with it and send the baby in for genetic testing so we can know if I'm opening my email right here to see if they've given me the results yet, to see if I was having a boy or a girl.
Hey, friends, we're taking a break from this episode so I can share with you a little more about one of our sponsors, Fullwell. Fullwell is a reproductive health company offering superior nutritional supplements that are made without compromise to support women and men throughout their reproductive journey. I have taken Fullwell's prenatals, their fish oil, and have literally tried every product they've released, and I stand behind this recommendation with my whole heart. One of my favorite things to recommend to clients is their Fertility Trio. This includes their egg and sperm quality supplement, their women's prenatal, and fish oil. This helps proactively support you getting ready to conceive. This trio includes things like CoQ10, ashwagandha, and NAC. It makes me think of a life vest. You don't want to go into pregnancy without these foundational supports. And if you've been struggling while trying to conceive, this is the time to upgrade your prenatal fertility game and check out Fullwell. Use code FFF20 today to get 20% off your first order.
Which I don't seem to have a result just yet. That I may have to wait. I think that goes to pathology and then goes to my doctor instead to my chart or whatever the heck. So we're gonna find out if it was a boy or a girl, and or hopefully she said it wasn't really, things had sort of, I'd had that methotrexate, and so things had sort of dissolved and come apart, and it's just a
Mhm.
whole big mess in there. So hopefully we'll get that. And then sent me home that night.
Wild.
Wild.
All of a sudden I get a text. Actually, that's not true.
Louis called
Louis
you, didn't
called
he?
me. I think I might have been like the second call or something. He called me and I saw his call and I was like, nothing in the world stopping me from answering this call. But it was late here by the
Yeah.
time you actually got out of surgery. He was just first of all, he was so sweet. I was like, I didn't expect you to call, but I'm so glad you did. He said, you're her best friend. Like, you deserve to know exactly what happened. I'm kind
Well,
of
and the reason I
processing
even
it.
went and got checked was because you were so adamant. You are a intricate part of the story. So we joke about, tell your friends where you're at in your cycle, tell your friends what your cervical mucus looks like. I'm telling you, 2 heads are better than 1 in an emergency.
Yeah. And he just doesn't know those things to know how serious this can be. He hasn't sat on the podcast episodes where we've talked to people who've lost things in terms of their fertility beyond even just the baby and an ectopic pregnancy. That's not his expertise. And what he is really good at is being calm in a crisis. Like,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. But he was so sweet on the phone, not just about me, but just about how much he loved you and how thankful he was that you were alive and how thankful he was that you had the surgeon you had. And it was, I'll remember that phone call. I'll be old before I forget that phone call. He was very sweet. He felt so bad. You sat at that ER without him. It was just very sweet sentiment. And then he gave me kind of the 411. And then I said, so they only took a tube, huh? They left her ovary? Because at first, going into that surgery, we thought you were maybe going to leave without an ovary, because what we
Yeah.
knew was
The pregnancy was on the ovary. Yeah. But they were able, I think she probably had to take part of it. But yeah.
And then he said, but there's another piece of this that Sophia doesn't know yet, because I don't think he'd even seen you at this point. That's going to be a little bit hard to come to terms with. And so kind of the next thing is you waking up. So what was that like, waking up to Louis and finding out what you found out?
What did I find out? That I lost a tube?
Not that you lost a tube, but also why it all happened, right? Like, there's
Oh,
information about the
shish
fibroid.
kebabs. Yeah, that. Hello. Yes. So, remember how I was talking in episode 1 about my frenemy, the fibroid? Well, I made the joke to my surgeon that she's my frenemy, and she said, she's just an enemy now. Because what had happened was this fibroid is so large and in charge that she had slumped over. First of all, the fibroid is bigger than my uterus at this point, and it has slumped over onto the tube, giving it a squish. So that sperm can get up, but a baby can't get out. Roaches check in, they don't check out. I got a roach motel going on here because of this damn fibroid. So the fibroid had put pressure on the ovary, on the tube, to where a tiny little bitty cell of a sperm can make it up, which kudos to Louie's eager sperms, making it up to the egg in the tube. But then once this big egg and all the cells are dividing and it's growing and everything, it can't make it back out. That is the issue. So yeah, I forgot about that. My surgeon was basically like, we're gonna have to talk about this fibroid. Like, I couldn't remove it because your uterus is pregnant, and so it's very swollen and vascular, and you'd already lost so much blood that I just couldn't do it right now. It wasn't the time. And so she said, we'll talk about it at your 2-week appointment, but your fibroid's got to go. She's got to go. We got to kick her out of here.
Which is really, I mean, from a consent perspective, I'm sure there's other things that go into it. But there are implications to having that fibroid removed, right?
And I had said plain as day, save my life, preserve my fertility. So she's like, check and check. This fibroid isn't killing her right now. So she gets to stay.
So what happens if you have the fibroid removed?
So a myomectomy is what it's called. And the fibroid is, fibroids can be different places and different sizes and doing different things. Mine is in the middle wall of the muscle of the uterus. And it is so big now that removing it is going to leave a monstrous hole in my uterus that's then going to need to be sewn and take a long while to heal. So if I have this fibroid removed, I would need to wait at least 6 months, preferably a year, before getting another baby inside my uterus. Getting pregnant is also how people say that. And and I would most likely need a C-section birth, which stinks and I don't want to do.
Yeah, spoken by somebody
So
who fought so hard to have 2 home births,
exactly.
And this is the thing, right? Like we don't do home births to risk our lives too, right?
No,
If you want another baby and that's the way you get it, then that is what it is, and you get
for
to
sure.
make
It's
that
just no
decision.
one's plan.
Right.
It's
And
not the dream.
like that, to me, being on the other side of that phone call from him, I was like, whoa, that'll be something to wrap your head around, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot that you went through in the last week. I mean, it's only been a week. We're recording this Tuesday, a week from the
Surgery was
initial,
Friday. So I'm only not even 4 days out of the operating room right now.
to find out that you lost a baby, you lost a fallopian tube, we saved your life, but even just the next 3 weeks of your life are going to be very different. And that's a lot to wrap your head around.
And that's what recovery is that's a good question. People are probably going to wonder, what's recovery going to look like for me? So my doctor told me 1 week in bed, 1 week followed by 1 week sort of at home around the bed. So, hanging out on the couch, maybe cooking for myself, hanging around, but I'm not, driving across town and going to the beach and what all. And then another week after that of just light duty, back to regular life. And then in about a month, I can resume working out. And at about 6 weeks, we can talk about whether I'm going to start having sex again, at least 3 months before I'm really like back in action. And as far as the fibroid goes, listeners, there are nutritional things you can do to help fibroids. There are Eastern medicine things, acupuncture and herbs. There's various like body work kind of stuff that you can do to
We
help
should do a whole
slow the
episode
progression of
on
a
it.
fibroid.
That would
We
be so
should.
fun. Let's do that.
We should. But truth be told, I have not been doing those things. I didn't want to. Because a lot of it is like going dairy free and like eating a bunch of stupid sprouts and like getting expensive acupuncture and spending a bunch of time on yourself. And I have 2 children in a business. I don't really have a lot of time to be lying about getting acupuncture and putting on castor oil packs and cleaning, dry brushing in the morning and doing lymphatic drainage exercises and all this crap. But it's not crap. It does help to shrink a fibroid. And so my plan, step 1, heal up from this endeavor. Step 2, lean into fibroid care and see if, when I really give these things a go, if I can't shrink up this fibroid to the point where I can get pregnant naturally, squeak out 1 more baby, and then go have the surgery.
I think for our listeners, there's so much where it's like, oh, I know I need to be doing this. I know this is hard. I relate to that with my PCOS. You don't want to
Yes.
be perfect all the time. You don't want
No.
to go to bed at the same time every night and turn off the blue screens and drink less wine and drink less caffeine and Sometimes you just want to eat a whole load of pizza and drink a margarita, but you know that
Yeah.
that's going to put you
Take your
someplace tomorrow.
supplements, Caitlin, and do your mindfulness,
Right.
Caitlin, and do your stretches and make sure you hit your weights and manage your stress. And you're like, no,
I don't want
I'm
to do it
rebel.
all the time. And it's okay to have those moments, but I think that this realization too of like, okay, it is surgery or I work really hard at this. Sometimes if you want the specific outcome, like if like Sophia just told you what a beautiful goal would look like. I do these things and I shrink this fibroid enough that I can squeak out one more pregnancy and baby before we have this surgery. That would be at this point, aside from God healing you, that's the kind of like work hard miracle story, right?
Yeah.
But another scenario is even doing all those things perfectly, still needing surgery. And I don't want you, Sophia, or you, listener, a year from now reflecting on all the hard work you put in and think, I just couldn't do enough. Okay.
No, you just don't
Sometimes the
always get to
natural
do
stuff
all of
can only
everything.
take you so far. But also, if you never try them, you never see what they do. So you
And the risk is what? I guess the biggest risk is I spend money on
time.
acupuncture and time.
Mhm. Which
But
it
it's the
is
risk of
something to weigh
surgery
out.
much higher.
Well, but it's something to weigh out, right? 37.
Yeah.
Try, time is important here. But
Yeah.
these are the kind of things having a curious practitioner, somebody willing to have these conversations, willing to talk through all the risks, benefits, alternatives, etc., so that you can make informed choices. And then I would say a piece that Sophia has in spades in somebody like me or in her husband, who basically told her, don't fill your belly with chocolate. You need to eat iron rich
Oh, he
nutrient
did tell me that the
things.
other day, guys. I wanted to eat this little like chocolate covered marshmallow thing that I saw at the pharmacy when I was waiting for them to give me my prescription. And he was like, heck no. He's like, every bite you eat needs to be nutritious right now because frankly, my appetite hasn't been great. You know, when your belly's really sore and you're on all
Mhm.
kinds of weird meds and
Yes.
you're like stiff and you're just not hungry. And plus, I'm burning 0 calories sitting on my patoot all day long. So, fine. But, I at the same time, I don't disagree with him, but I also think I should be allowed treats.
You should be allowed treats. But my point is you have accountability in spades. Like you have people checking in on you saying, how are you
I
doing?
do.
What are you doing? You do have this doctor that said to you multiple times, go do acupuncture. So you have checkpoints, and that's really wonderful and important too.
Sophia here, interrupting this episode to talk about fond bone broth, tallow, and lard. So, fond bone broth has long since been a staple in my home kitchen. I use this all the time. You will always find it in my kitchen. And do you know what? I even make my own bone broth. That's how much I love fond is I pay money for something that I also regularly make for myself. It is beyond delicious. The flavors that they have in these broths, it's so deep and complex. It's not like a can of Swanson's. It's not just like the chicken and stars type flavor, though that can be delicious at times. This is such a complexity of flavor. It's almost like a beverage, and I'm not exaggerating. Plus, you can use it in cooking, everything from vegetables, starches, grains. Very, very easy way to get more collagen, protein, and minerals into your life by simply cooking with broth. It is truly delicious, and it will take any dish you use to cook with it, from just a normal dish on the table to truly gourmet. So head on over to fondbonebroth.com and use code FFF10 for 10% off your first time order. Bye. Yes.
So,
And that's pretty much the story, gals.
and I think the only thing to add to it is your community has.
My community has risen up in such a sweet way. I have got flowers. I have got new soft pajamas because like my belly is so swollen right now that and so tender that none of my current pajama clothes really fit that well. Or maybe some of them just land at the wrong place on my belly or whatever. And so one of my girlfriends, Bethany, came over 2 days ago with a bag full of new pajamas from Target. So soft and nice.
No,
Like Caitlin's cousin Star with the nice bedding. Flowers. I have a meal train for days, and it's so helpful. And I've even had people, like, they come over, they drop off the food, they sit with me and chat for a little bit, because I'm very social, and it does feel very kind of sad and isolating to lay here
stuck in
and
bed. We've FaceTime more in the last few days than we ever do. I mean, because we see each
it's
other
so
here.
true.
But
Well, because usually I'm getting my jollies out in the community and seeing clients and like
getting my jollies.
my clients. Though I just took on a bunch of private clients. I've seen about each of them one time. One of them I had to cancel our first session because I had said, I think I'm having a miscarriage. I have to go to the ER. And everyone has been like, please take all the time you need. I am so sorry. And I've offered them, I'm happy to give you a refund. If you want to go see someone else, like, because I just truly can't right now. And they're like, don't even apologize. Like, take care of yourself. Everyone has been so supportive. And
That's the best.
emotionally, I feel good. I don't know how I'm going to feel, grief wise, that I lost a baby, that I lost a tube, that I don't know. All these things. I think I just have some like survivor's high where I just feel so good about being alive. I even want to like find out who donated this blood that I got and be like, thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone has just been so supportive and kind, and neighbors being like, do your girls want to come over and play for an hour so they're not so cooped up? And just sweet people in our community offering to love and care for myself and my family. It's been really a testament. So those of you that are in the season of waiting right now, please invest in your community. Be the one that brings a meal to the new mom or the old, menopausal lady who just had ankle surgery or whatever. Not because you expect her to be there for you when you need it, but because it's part of the richness of life, and we all need each other. Invest in your community. Be the one that says you can drop your kids off for an hour while you go get your blood drawn. Be the one that says, you got one kid who broke their arm and is laid up, send the other two over to play, like, or whatever. I was trying to think of, like, you got one sick kid, send the two healthy ones over, but maybe don't do that.
Well, I just had a
Depending on
scenario
your level of risk.
in my community Bible study of somebody who has an abusive alcoholic husband, and she finally just said enough is enough and filed an emergency thing and hopped in the chat and was like, I'm not coming anymore because I need to get a full-time job. This is what's going on. Please pray for me. And I was like, I'm praying for you. And I don't mean it like F prayer. Prayer is really important, but you need boots on the ground. So what can this group of 12 capable women do for you? Should I start you a meal train? I have kids at my house with strep throat, can't bring your kids over, but next week I probably could. And I think that is something, maybe it's age and life experience, is just realizing, like, be the one to just jump in and be like, this is what I can do for you. And let me show up that way for you right now because you're in need. And that's what community is for. Like, friendship, community, connection. Like, God made us for that. And doing it alone.
And it's part of the richness of life.
Yeah.
Being in people's lives in this way. We've had in our own community, we had a gal, a family with a daughter who's like 3, get ready to have another baby, and things suddenly, they had just moved here from Hawaii, their Navy. No, they'd moved here from Germany, excuse me. Their household goods had not arrived, and baby did arrive. And so they're in their house with an airbed, plastic forks, like, just nothing. And so our whole community was like, okay, who's got towels? Who's got a shower curtain? Who's got a chair? These things, we just sort of, everybody like caravanned over with
All the
they're,
things.
you know, these
It's
people are going to have
amazing.
a tan bottom sheet and a
Who
white top
cares?
sheet and a Cookie Monster quilt, but they have a bedding set for their aunt who just flew in to help them take care of their toddler. They've got a nursing chair to sit in. They've got a boppy pillow. They've got, you know, breast pads. They've got all these little things that you need when you come home with a baby, especially one that was born 16 days early. Just shocking, you know, that this happened. And their household goods arrived like 5 days later. But it was just one of those things where everybody was like, we hadn't even met these folks. She had just been out walking her dog and like met another mom in the neighborhood, and we all sort of came together. They gave us the code on their front door, and we all just carried baskets of things in and
I
got their
love that.
house
Oh my gosh,
livable.
I love that.
Yeah, and this is what community is I guarantee in your house right now, you have got more towels than you presently need for this week.
And you
And
can share them.
you can share them.
Yeah.
And people in that situation don't care that you used this one when you dyed your hair and it has a brown stain on the back of it. They're just happy that they're not using a paper towel when they get out of their shower, because the Navy keeps saying, tomorrow we're going to deliver it. Tomorrow we're going to deliver it. Tomorrow we're going to deliver it. So you're not going to Walmart and buying all new things because tomorrow they're going to deliver it. Yeah. Anyway, listener, invest in your community, track your freaking cycle so you know that you're bleeding at a random time. And you don't just think, oh, I guess my period's here again. Please, for the love of God, go back and listen to every episode of cycle tracking and get expertly good at that. And take care of yourself. Ask for help. And I mean, it really does bring you closer to people. And maybe you're not asking help from something that seems that important. Maybe you just have a strep throat. Maybe you just have a sprained ankle. Well, reach into your community for help, because those people are going to be drawn closer to you in that time. And then they're going to be more likely to ask you for help when they sprain their ankle.
Amen. Hey friends, we're taking a break from our episode to talk about one of our sponsors. And this sponsor is the PCOS app. Did you know that I made an app all about PCOS? Well, I did, and you can find so many resources in it. We have slowly moved all the resources from my PCOS Hormone Academy course over into the PCOS app, and that talks about all things PCOS topically. Like if you have acne, you can go look at the skin and acne modules and see, what does Western medicine offer? Why does this impact PCOS? What can we do about it? What are natural remedies? What are nutritional remedies? We talk about hair loss and hirsutism all through that lens, where we go through, what is it? Why is it impacted by PCOS? Or why do we need to pay more attention to this particular thing? And what can we do about it? And we provide a vast resource to help you both advocate for yourself at the doctor's office and treat yourself at home naturally. Now, the exciting thing that I want to share with you is, starting in January 2025, we're starting to migrate all of the content that I have published so far on fertility into this app. I used to sell a course for $700 all about how to get pregnant with PCOS, and that is all getting moved into the app between January and March. So you can take the course as if you enrolled in the whole thing for $10 per month. So head to your app store, whether you're on a Google Android device or an Apple device. If you type in PCOS app, you just look for that really pretty lavender flower, you'll find it. Download it and join us, because you're going to get weekly recipes and all the fertility focused PCOS content that you need. It will start being uploaded under the Academy tab. So stay tuned for that. And let's get back to our episode. Well, guys, I hope that Sophia's honesty and transparency and just like inviting you into her story. I know we do that a lot with our lives, but there was a lot of intimacy in this that she was willing to share so that it could benefit you in some way, or so that you feel closer to us. I mean, you guys trust us with a lot, and even just tuning in and trusting our expertise and the passion we bring to this podcast, or those of you that have hired us or bought things from us. But I hope that seeing just the way she's living this out inspires you in some way, because your story may not look exactly like it, but you have loss, you have grief, You have dreams that are unfulfilled, and you have some agency and control over what you eat today or who you go see as your medical provider. And I want you to be inspired to fight for yourself, have grace for yourself when you need rest and healing, and maybe even just be inspired by what like true friendship looks like and invest in those friendships. Maybe not the whole community, but like that person that's your person. Because I think, I mean, I saw that so clearly too in just the conversation I had with my person's husband when he called to say she's coming out of surgery. Just the intimacy.
He called you. So I got out. First person he called was my mom, my sister, and you.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet to be that inner circle. And I'm privileged to be Sophia's inner circle every day.
And to the point where even I was like, I don't know if Caitlin's getting my messages. I'm going to loop BJ in on this because.
Right. And he did. He was like up the stairs and at me, you know. Anyway, I hope that this is helpful, healing, or inspiring in a way that you needed it. And we'll be back next week with some regularly scheduled content. But thanks for hanging with us and being a part of this story in some way.
Thanks, listener.